전시는 계속되고 있습니다.
아, 지금 그럼 준비지가 한창입니다, 지금.
네, 지금 DP 중이죠.
아, DP라고 하나요? 이렇게
네,
하는 거를?
DP라고 합니다.
그냥 그 말도 되게 고급스러운 다른 단어가 있을 줄 알았거든요.
디스플레이의 준말. DP.
아, 네, DP라고 하네요.
반갑습니다. 저는 최인아 책방 선릉점 매니저 백정민입니다. 최인아 대표님이 처음 책방을 열 때 직장인들의 고민에서 시작을 했어요. 직장인분들을 위한 좀 더 가까이에서 책을 만날 수 있는 공간을 만들기 위해서 이곳에 열게 되었습니다. 저희 최인아 책방은 도서관식 나열법보다는 특별한 주제별로 큐레이션이 되어 있어요. 예를 들면 방황하는 20대들에게 또는 고민이 많은 30살들에게 또는 아이디어가 떠오르지 않을 때 영감을 주는 책들 같은 주제들인데요. 저희 최인아 책방을 처음 열었을 때 사람들이 유튜브를 보거나 점점 종이책을 찾지 않게 된다고 생각을 하셨대요. 그래서 사람들이 고민을 할 때 책을 찾더라라고 접근법을 바꾼 거죠. 그래서 이렇게 큐레이션을 하게 되었습니다. 저희가 5년째 이어오고 있는 클래식 책방 콘서트라는 프로그램이 있어요. 송영민 피아니스트와 함께 클래식 연주회를 열고 있고요. 안현배 미술학자분을 모시고 미술서 수업을 연다든지 문학과 예술이 함께하는 공간으로 꾸미고 있고요. 여러분들이 살아가면서 생각의 힘을 키울 수 있는 그런 여지나 인사이트를 줄 수 있는 프로그램들을 많이 구성하고 있습니다. 네, 저희 최인아 책방 북클럽이라는 서비스인데요. 매월 초 저희 책방에서 고른 책 한 권과 최인아 대표님 책방 마님이 쓴 편지가 함께 동봉이 됩니다. 여러분들이 받으시는 설렘을 조금 더 더하기 위해서 비밀책으로 운영을 하고 있고요. 저희가 책을 선정하는 기준은 생각해볼 만한 인사이트가 담겨 있는가를 가장 중심적으로 생각을 하고 있어요. 좋은 책을 발견해서 전달해드리는 기쁨을 전하려고 그렇게 진행을 하고 있습니다. 제가 첫 번째로 소개해드리고 싶은 책은요, 김초엽 작가님의 우리가 빛의 속도로 갈 수 없다면 입니다. 우선 제가 정말 재밌게 읽었고요. 또 우리나라에서 SF의 우아한 계보를 잇는다라는 수식어가 붙을 만큼 김초엽 작가님의 책은 SF계에서 신선함이 굉장히 뚜렷한 것 같아요. 그래서 아마 읽으시면은 놀람과 신선함과 인사이트를 동시에 만나실 수 있을 텐데 나의 세계관이 지금 확장되고 있음을 느끼시면서 읽을 수 있는 책이라 추천을 드립니다. 두 번째 책은 정유정 작가님의 7년의 밤입니다. 대한민국의 쪽에 장르 소설의 대가라고 손꼽히는 분이시고요. 저희 책방에 북토크를 오셨었는데 이 책에 대해서 진정성과 몰입도가 굉장하시더라고요. 그래서 책을 아마 읽으실 때도 굉장히 몰입해서 시간 가는 줄 모르고 읽으실 거예요. 그래서 그런 것들이 아마 독서의 기쁨이 아닐까 생각을 해서 또 추천을 드립니다. 마지막 책은 천명관 작가님의 고래라는 작품인데요. (2004년에) 나와서 시간이 꽤 흐른 도서지만 여전히 스테디셀러로 많은 분들이 찾고 있는 소설인데요. 이야기의 탄탄한 힘이 한번 읽으면 다시 접을 수가 없을 만큼 아주 빠져드는 이야기고, 또 다양한 인물들이 나오는데 서사들이 굉장히 다양해요. 그래서 여러 사람의 인생을 만나실 텐데 그 과정에서 다채로운 감정을 느끼시기에 가장 좋고 또 문학의 기쁨을 느끼실 수 있는 책이라고 생각해서 추천을 드립니다. 저희 책방 바로 건너편에 선정릉이라고 굉장히 큰 릉이자 숲속 같은 길이 있어요. 서울에 오시면은 빌딩 숲들이 강남에 되게 많은데요. 거기에 가시면 아마 숲속에 온 듯한 기분이 드실 거예요. 그래서 거기 앉아서 책 읽기도 좋고 산책하시기도 좋고, 그래서 추천을 드리고요. 정용준 작가님의 선릉 산책이라는 책이 있어요. 그래서 그걸 또 선정릉에서 읽으시면 더 좋을 것 같습니다. 오프라인의 힘을 저희 책방은 믿습니다. 실제로 만나면 또 발생하는 에너지도 있고요. 그래서 앞으로도 여러분들이 책방에 직접 걸음하실 이유를 만드는, 고민하는 작업들을 계속 할 거고, 지금 하고 있는 다채로운 세션들도 함께 만나실 수 있게 꾸준히 노력할 예정입니다. 감사합니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Retail giant Coupang has said a former employee responsible for the recent data leak has confessed to using a stolen key to break into about 33 million customer accounts, but added data from only about 3,000 of them was stored, and that the perpetrator deleted all stored data after media reports emerged. However, the Korean government says Coupang's claims have not yet been verified. North Korea displayed apparent progress in its nuclear power submarine project, saying its leader Kim Jong-un visited a shipyard to inspect the construction of what the regime claims is an 8,700-ton nuclear power submarine. It also said it tested a new type of surface-to-air missile in the East Sea. Ukraine and Russia continue to exchange airstrikes on Christmas Day, with both sides stepping up attacks on key energy infrastructure in recent weeks. The U.S., Ukraine, and Russia are continuing peace talks aimed at ending the prolonged war. We begin this morning with latest on the Coupang data breach. The company has announced that a former staff member admitted responsibility for the recent massive data leak. But this disclosure has been fiercely criticized by the Korean government, which is taking its own steps to respond to the aftermath of the incident. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
Coupang says it identified the former employee responsible for the large-scale leak of customer information after tracking down the individual through digital forensic evidence. According to the e-commerce giant on Thursday, a former staff member admitted to using a stolen security key to access some 33 million customer accounts. Of those, data from about 3,000 accounts were stored. The information included customer names, email addresses, phone numbers, home addresses, limited order details, and roughly 2,000 access codes for shared apartment building entrances. Coupang said no payment information, login credentials, or personal customs clearance numbers were accessed. The company added that the perpetrator deleted all stored data after media reports emerged and said there is no evidence that any information was transmitted to third parties. The individual also told investigators that the laptop used in the breach was destroyed and thrown into a river. Coupang said the device was later recovered during a search of the river. The company said it commissioned top-tier global cybersecurity firms from the early stages of the incident, and that the result of those investigations are consistent with the perpetrator's statements. Coupang said it will continue to provide updates and will separately announce customer compensation measures. However, the government has objected to Coupang's disclosure, saying that the company unilaterally made public matters currently under investigation by a joint public-private probe. The Science Ministry says Coupang's claims have not yet been verified and remain subject to confirmation, adding that investigators are still examining the type, scale, and cause of the data leak. On Christmas Day, the presidential office convened an emergency ministerial-level meeting to discuss countermeasures to the data leakage. Chaired by Presidential Policy Chief Kim Yong-bum, the meeting was attended by senior officials from relevant ministries, agencies, and foreign affairs circles. This comes amid allegations over Coupang's lobbying of U.S. political and government figures, which could lead to potential diplomatic and trade friction, alongside separate criticism from former U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien over his handling of the Coupang data breach. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, North Korea has once again ramped up tensions on the Korean peninsula, testing new surface-to-air missiles on Christmas Eve. The test was observed by regime leader Kim Jong-un, who then proceeded to inspect a nuclear power submarine project. Our Park Jun-an reports.
North Korea announced two major military developments on Thursday, further escalating military tension on the Korean peninsula. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff announced on Thursday that the military had detected launch signs in advance and tracked several presumed surface-to-air missiles fired from the Sondok area in Gangneung-do province around 5 p.m. on Wednesday toward the East Sea. Observed by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Pyongyang conducted the first test of a new type of high-altitude, long-range surface-to-air missile system over the East Sea. Kim congratulated those who participated in the test, which was presented as a standard procedure to enhance the country's air defense capabilities. While a joint analysis with U.S. intelligence is underway, the Joint Chiefs of Staff stressed its robust allied deterrence posture against any potential provocations by the North. Also on Thursday, Kim Jong-un visited a shipyard that is allegedly constructing an 8,700-ton nuclear-powered strategic guided missile submarine. The North Korean state-run Korean Central News Agency quoted Kim as sharply criticizing South Korea's plan to develop nuclear-powered submarines. Kim said the plan, under the approval of the U.S., would further destabilize the Korean peninsula. He described the move as an aggressive act that seriously infringes on North Korea's national security and maritime sovereignty, adding that Pyongyang views it as a security threat that must be met with a response. Kim's observation of the missile tests and visiting the nuclear submarine project were widely seen as efforts to reiterate to South Korea and the United States that denuclearization is impossible. It also serves as a way to highlight deterrence capabilities through propaganda, claiming progress in building submarines with long-endurance submerged operations and nuclear strike capabilities. 박주단, Arirang News.
Hanwha says preparations are already underway at its Philadelphia shipyard to build nuclear-powered submarines for the U.S. Navy. The announcement came on Monday local time during a briefing with South Korean reporters at the shipyard. Tom Anderson, president of Hanwha Defense USA and a former U.S. Navy Rear Admiral, said Hanwha Philly Shipyard has already begun preparatory work for building nuclear-powered submarines, with work underway to expand the workforce, improve production efficiency, invest in facilities, and transfer best practices and technologies from Korean shipyards. The disclosure was made as U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled plans for a so-called Golden Fleet, part of a broader push to revive America's domestic shipbuilding industry, with Hanwha Shipyard named as a key partner. The first of 4 court cases against former President Yoon Suk-yeol will conclude hearings with a final session today. Seoul Central District Court will hold a closing hearing in a case against Yoon for obstructing the execution of a warrant to arrest him and infringing on cabinet minister's constitutional authority to deliberate and vote on the declaration of martial law. The court will hear testimonies from former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min and former Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok before final statements from prosecutors, the defense counsel, and Yoon himself. This will be the first of 4 insurrection-related trials involving Yoon to wrap up arguments, with an initial decision likely in mid-January. Prosecutors argue that Yoon selectively convened cabinet members during the martial law declaration to create the appearance of legal procedure. His defense maintains the process was lawful and the arrest attempt was illegal. With plans underway for President Lee Jae-myung to make a state visit to China early next year, South Korea's foreign minister says Seoul and Beijing are currently planning a summit between President Lee Jae-myung and Xi Jinping. For more on what lies ahead for relations between South Korea and China in 2026, we're joined today by Professor Lee Min-jin, professor at the Division of International Studies at Koongju National University. Professor Im, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So what might be on the agenda if a meeting between President Lee and Xi does take place?
Well, it has been a while, again, for the both capital, again, the Seoul and Beijing, to have the summit level meeting. And the President Xi Jinping, he visited, again, the Gyeongju when we hosted APEC this year. That was very meaningful visit. It has been more than 10 years for the Chinese president to come to, again, the Korean territory, so which was very meaningful moment. Vice versa, again, likewise, again, the South Korean president, again, the visit to China, it has been a while too. So again, the President Lee Jae-myung's that visit to Beijing, if it's really accomplished in the early next year, if so, it is itself, I will say, again, it's very much meaningful for the two countries' relationship. Agenda, we have many different and meaningful, important agenda. For example, again, the supply chain issue. As we all know, the China has very strong the power in the structure of the global value chain, especially in terms of the critical mineral supply. As we all know, again, South Korea, our strength for the manufacturing, of course, the semiconductor is one big thing, or like a shipbuilding, steel making, or like a battery. Those kind of things are all need a critical mineral as input, indispensable input material. So if we can really stabilize those kind of, again, the supply of those kind of critical mineral, it will be very much meaningful, not only for the South Korea's economy, but also for the whole global, again, the market as well. So I guess, again, the kind of economic security issue, supply chain stability issue, those things can be constructively discussed between the two leaders.
Right, economic issues are critical and crucial in bilateral relations, but Chinese structures in the West Sea continue to be a thorn in bilateral relations. Would a meeting between the two leaders significantly help resolve this major issue?
Well, to be very honest, I'm pretty much a little bit ambivalent about that specific issue because of course, I'm not trying to support China as that kind of, again, the activity, because this is done in the PMZ. PMZ stands for, again, the provisional measure zone, because as we all know, is that it does need a 200 nautical mile, and the sea, again, the West Sea, it doesn't have really 400 nautical mile between the China and South Korea. So, which means, again, the EEZ can be overlapped in the sea. So that is why we set up this so-called provisional measure zone. Literally does mean that, status quo is very much important. So even though China has this kind of activity, they will explain this is not against, anyone, or they are doing this for their research, or like a fishery. However, fish farm actually. However, if they install those kind of artificial installation, in that region, in that sea, we are very much concerned about a possibility of changes in the status quo. Again, the status quo is the condition, again, the precondition for the stability in the sea. Again, we don't want to be against offensive to one another. So I think this can be a agenda between the two leaders. But as I said, earlier, I'm pretty much a little bit doubtful actually about how much really the two leaders can agree on this specific issue. But certainly, again, Korean society is pretty much worried about any, changes in the status quo, which can undermine, again, the stability of the region. Mm-hmm.
I see. So a lot to discuss. And since China is such an important key partner for South Korea economically and diplomatically, how should South Korea navigate its relations with Beijing in the coming year? What steps do you think should be taken to balance relations between China and the United States in 2026?
Well, U.S.-China strategic rivalry, it cannot be ended very much soon. We all know this because, they are competing for the future technology. It is not only about just trade balance issue, or it is not only about, who has more like the chips, for example. It is beyond that kind of level, which means, again, the U.S.-China strategic rivalry will continue for a while, I think. So having said that, again, the South Korea's position is, of course, difficult because U.S. is, of course, our ally and one of the largest market in the world, one of our, largest trading partner. At the same time, China too, as still it remains as the largest trading partner for South Korea. And more importantly, when we are trying to dealing with, again, the North Korean issue, again, China's support is, again, significant, crucial. So again, we need to have a good balance, again, between the two very much important country for us. However, again, of course, I guess, again, the strategic calculation is more, how would you say, can be more emphasized next year, because all this, tension, as you just, this news, Arirang news, as you guys already showed, again, the North Korea's that kind of, again, the newly recent movements for the nuclear power submarine like strategic weapons. Again, considering all this kind of, again, the new challenges in this region, probably, again, the strategic relationship with the U.S. can be emphasized continuously. However, at the same time, I will say again that we definitely need to continue the good relationship, sustain the good relationship, constructive relationship with the Beijing as well for the, of course, the peace in this region and the stability of the region as well.
Right, we'll have to see how that plays out in the coming year. All right, Professor Lim, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Fighting continued through Christmas as Ukraine launched drone and missile strikes on major Russian energy facilities on Christmas Day. However, the United States, Ukraine, and Russia continued to hold talks in hopes of a peace deal. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Fighting between Russia and Ukraine continued through Christmas, with both sides stepping up attacks on key energy infrastructure. As Russian offensives continued, Ukraine launched retaliatory drone and missile strikes on Christmas Day, targeting several facilities inside Russia. The Ukrainian military said it struck an oil refinery in Russia's Rostov region using British-made Storm Shadow cruise missiles. Ukraine also carried out long-range drone attacks on oil product storage tanks in the Russian port city of Temerik, as well as gas processing plant in Orenburg in southwestern Russia. Both Moscow and Kyiv have increasingly targeted energy facilities in recent weeks, viewing them as critical leverage points as the war nears its fourth year and diplomatic efforts cautiously resume. Meanwhile, on Thursday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said he held an hour-long call with U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to discuss possible ways to end the conflict.
Today, we spoke with representatives of the U.S. President for almost an hour. We spoke with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. It was a really good conversation, many details.
Earlier this week, Zelensky unveiled a new 20-point draft peace plan, describing it as the main framework for ending the war. The proposal is a scaled-down version of an earlier 28-point plan that had been discussed between the U.S. and Russia, in which Kyiv criticized for favoring Moscow through territorial concessions and limits on Ukraine's military. Zelensky said key territorial issues remain unresolved and stressed that a direct meeting with Trump would be needed to address the most sensitive points. Meanwhile, Russia said talks with the United States are making slow but steady progress.
In the negotiation process on the settlement of the Ukraine conflict, in the negotiation process with the United States, there is slow but steady progress.
Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova also accused Western European countries of trying to derail negotiations and urged Washington to counter such moves. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The Bank of Korea says it'll decide on potential interest rate cuts next year based on inflation, growth, metropolitan area housing prices, and exchange rates. Now that's according to the central bank's monetary policy for 2026 released on Thursday. The BOK expects inflation to hover around its 2% target, but warned of upward pressure from high foreign exchange rates and stronger domestic demand. The bank, however, said the growth outlook is subject to volatility amid changes in the economic environment and the semiconductor demand cycle. It added that it'll strengthen monitoring and risk management of financial and foreign exchange markets and the financial system and implement market stabilization measures promptly when necessary. Meanwhile, New York City Mayor-elect Yoon Mamdani has appointed Korean-American author Lee Min-jin, best known for her novel Pachinko, to his inauguration committee ahead of his swearing-in on January 1st. According to Mamdani's transition team, the mayor-elect on Thursday unveiled a list of 48 members of the New York City Mayoral Inauguration Committee, including Lee. The author gained international acclaim for Pachinko, a sweeping novel that depicts the multi-generational struggles of a Korean family living in Japan. According to Mamdani's team, the inauguration committee was chosen from people from across fields and communities. It includes New Yorkers whose creativity, leadership, and lived experience reflect the full life of the city.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Honduras electoral authorities on Wednesday declared Trump-backed conservative Nasri Asfura the winner of the November 30th presidential election, ending a weeks-long vote count. Asfura won 40.27% of the vote, narrowly ahead of the center-right Liberal Party candidate Salvador Nasralla at 39.53%. The ruling leftist Libre Party's candidate finished third with 19.19% in a clear rebuke of outgoing President Xiomara Castro's party. Trump endorsed the 67-year-old Asfura days before the vote, and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio congratulated him on social media. Nasralla alleged fraud, while the Organization of American States said it is closely following events and noted results that were announced, with 0.07% still being counted. Pope Leo, in his first Christmas address in St. Peter's Square, urged Ukraine and Russia to find the courage for sincere, direct, and respectful dialogue to end the Ukraine war. He called for weapons to fall silent as U.S.-led negotiations to end the almost 4 years of conflict continue. The Pope on Thursday also pointed to suffering in Gaza. He asked how people cannot think of people in tents exposed to rain, wind, and cold as the war there continues after Hamas' October 7, 2023 attack on Israel. Police in Nigeria said a suspected suicide bomber detonated an explosive inside a mosque during evening prayers on Wednesday, killing at least 5. The blast at the Al-Adu Mosque in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State, killed at least 5 worshippers and injured 35 others, police said. No group claimed responsibility. The attack comes amid heightened security concerns in Nigeria's northeast, where Boko Haram and its ISWAP faction have waged a 15-year insurgency. Governor Babagana Zulum condemned the attack and urged vigilance, as police said explosive ordnance teams were sweeping the area. A Powerball ticket sold at a gas station in Cabot, Arkansas, won a $1.817 billion jackpot on Christmas Eve, ending 3 months without a top prize winner. Powerball said final sales pushed the jackpot higher, making it the second largest U.S. lottery prize and the largest Powerball prize of 2025. The cash option stands at $834.9 million. Arkansas lottery officials said they will not know the winner until at least Monday because the claim center is closed for the holidays. The 3-month streak included 46 consecutive drawings without a jackpot winner.
This morning was the coldest we've had so far this winter. A powerful blast of Arctic air has surged in from the north, locking the entire country into a deep freeze. Cold wave alerts are in place in most parts of Korea, but I assume many of you are taking a long Christmas weekend, so if you're heading out, bundle up well. Heavy snow continue along Jeollado's west coast, while mountainous regions on Jeju Island could see up to 10 centimeters of snowfall, with heavy snow advisory being issued in those regions. But making conditions rougher is biting wind. A strong wind advisory is in place along coastal areas, bringing feels-like temperatures down at least 5 degrees Celsius. And this afternoon, most regions will see highs near or below freezing, topping out at -4 degrees here in Seoul and Chuncheon, Gwangju getting up to 1 degree under sunny skies. But the good news, the intense cold will finally start to ease tomorrow afternoon. But until then, stay warm and take extra care.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
할멈네 마당, 대단히. 할멈네 마당엔 늘 흙냄새가 먼저 깔린다. 배차는 조용히 숨을 고르고 그 손끝에 눌려 앉는다. 붉게 변한 살 사이에는 아무 말 없이 살아는 날들이 묻어있다. 아침바람이 배차를 품고 산등성이를 넘자 흙은 그 발자국을 다시 품어 안는다. 깊은 항아리 사이로 겨울이 조용히 익어갑니다.
held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of this
We're here to bring a new type of new show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are New Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, December 26th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Min-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Cheska.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Very happy.
Very happy. And Julie's also with us. Happy Friday. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Friday, the last day of the work week. I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas. While it may be behind us right now, but we now have the weekend to look forward to. And as we wrap up the year, there's one thing that feels bigger than ever, the continued rise of Korean culture around the world. So let me ask you this, Cheska. When do you personally feel the global popularity of Hallyu or K-culture?
Wow, I mean, I think I can go on, to be honest. I mean, just starting with the Netflix content and how high it's ranked, to how many K-pop stars are winning the hearts of the global world. But to be honest, I think I've had the most eye-opening experience just a couple of weeks ago. And our viewers who are watching this, who do come to Korea, there are very popular spots that a lot of foreigners go to, like Hongdae, Myeongdong.
Right, those are classics.
Yeah, Gangnam, right, the classics. Last week, I went to a place called Seongsu.
Oh, okay.
And it's usually a very hip place for Korean young people to, go to a nice cafe, have a nice meal. Oh my God, it was packed with international people, but not just that. A lot of pop-up stores or stores that were geared specifically towards international or foreign travelers. And I didn't even know about some of the events that were going on, but there were lines of foreign travelers or international people just waiting to get that kind of Korean pop-up store experience. So my friend and I stood there watching and say, we can't come here anymore. This is not for us. We have to go and find a different spot. So that was kind of a very visceral and physical experience of how popular Korean culture is becoming, that our city, once that felt like more Korean, is becoming like Hong Kong. I honestly felt like I was standing in a very international city. Yeah.
I feel like I was also in Seongsu actually last week, and you can definitely tell there are a lot of stores and shops that sell products I feel like, tourists really enjoy as well.
Yeah,
so
and they were also using a lot of like Netflix references to market their products. Yeah.
Right. So Julian, have you felt this as well?
Yeah, I felt it a lot, definitely. And I feel like I first started feeling it back in 2012, actually. When Gangnam Style became extremely viral. I was actually in middle school back then. And to me, it was just really surprising to see how important media can be to be such a catalyst in shaping positive perceptions of Korean culture. Because before that, I feel like people didn't really understand what Korea was, or just didn't really understand what Korean culture was, didn't even know where Korea was on the map.
Yes.
And so, I just feel like overnight, Korea just became a cultural powerhouse rather than just a poor, war-torn country. So now, experiencing Korea as living here in my 20s, I feel like I experience a lot more now. I feel like every time I go back home or a different country, people talk about this more. So I am grateful for the shift, and it made me definitely very proud of my cultural background. But that being said, there are some concerns about its huge popularity, which I'm really excited to talk about more later today.
So while that pride and positive recognition are important, it also sets the stage for the challenges that come with that level of attention. So we are going to dive deeper into this topic, but first, let's take a look at the screen. In recent years, Korean content, from K-pop artists and films to dramas and even food, has taken the world by storm. And this year, the Hallyu wave grew bigger than ever. But alongside its global success, concerns have also emerged. In some cases, the popularity of Hallyu has been misused and Korean culture has been misunderstood or distorted. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at these issues, examining how Hallyu has been exploited, how cultural misinterpretations arise, and what can be done to overcome the misunderstandings and unintended side effects of its global rise. So as we just saw in the video, the global success of Hallyu has brought both new opportunities and new challenges. So while Korean culture continues to gain worldwide attention, its rapid growth has also raised concerns and misinterpretations. So are there real-world cases where the global popularity of Hallyu has been deliberately misused, even leading to crimes or scams targeting fans, Julian?
Yes, unfortunately, and it's been extremely infuriating to see how Korean pop culture and the fans who actually really do genuinely love it are being exploited to commit such heinous crimes. So, for example, in Brazil, a website was recently discovered and suspected of being involved in sexual exploitation crimes that take advantage of the popularity of the Korean wave, prompting a police investigation. Now, the site claimed to offer opportunities to date Korean men by using Korean dramas as a bait, but in reality, it was just a sexual exploitation website. Now, I want to really emphasize just how deeply disturbing this is. Asian men in general have historically been demasculized and desexualized, albeit particularly in Western media. However, as the popularity of the Hallyu wave and the visibility of Asians in mainstream media in general continue to rise, we now finally have an opportunity to change that narrative and to show that we're just more than just a joke. But crimes like this exploit the growing popularity, and that's precisely why I believe it's so important to have these conversations openly, and what we're doing today, we need to continue to having more.
So you mentioned media, and I remember growing up, like I grew up mostly in Korea, but I remember seeing media how like before, like I feel like Asian men were viewed in a certain way as unattractive. I feel like that has definitely shifted as well. Like you grew up in the States, do you feel that?
Definitely, yes.
So we're also seeing debates around beauty standards tied to K-pop and K-drama. So have there been cases where Korean aesthetics this time were misunderstood or even criticized abroad, maybe especially in parts of Asia, Jessica?
Yes, and this is actually a very interesting case, and it's about skin color, or rather the way Koreans have described fair, poreless or porcelain-like white skin. Now, for the longest time, Koreans have had admiration for fair and less tanned skin. And I actually can also speak from my own experience, because when I was growing up here, when I was very young, in elementary school, very harmlessly and very innocently, my friends would make fun of my naturally tanned skin because it was darker in complexion. Now, the fact is, it actually dates back to our ancestral times, because fairer skin represented socio-economic hierarchy for Koreans. And this has continued well into many K aesthetics and now into K-entertainment, with overly whitened skin tones and heavy complexion filtering that are now being associated with K-drama actors and idols when they're on stage. Now, this has sparked a controversy over distorted representation of beauty standards. Now, in fact, particularly across Southeast Asia, there's a trend known as, quote, the tan skin challenge that has been spreading online as a direct response to Korea's, quote, white beauty standard. And even some international viewers have commented that on a Netflix show, Single Inferno, which became very popular, some of the participants complimented how white someone's skin was, and it actually became a heated discussion because some framed this as a form of, quote, white supremacy, which is a very, very sensitive topic, interpreting with a racial angle. But how our Korean beauty standards predates Western influence, which is something important to note as we discuss. But that being said, I think this brings surface to a more important question about how our traditional beauty standard may also need to be reevaluated to evolve in a more diverse global landscape.
I really like how you mentioned how it's like it predates Western standards, because I feel like it's more of a cultural thing. It's like a different type of compliment. You know you hear like stuff like it's meant as a compliment.
Yes.
That, and like also like your face is small.
Yeah, that's also something very interesting, because a lot of my foreign friends would get very offended when they hear those two things. Oh, your skin is so white, and you have such a small head. I can just I would be standing next to them like, don't say that.
But it's meant well.
It's meant as a compliment, right? And you also pointed that out right, because in the Western world, there were many different types of ethnicity and race. But for Korean, it wasn't so much about the racial value. It was more about the socio-economic hierarchy, because if you had a white skin, it meant you were able to stay indoors and do less outdoor work.
Right, it's more of a cultural and historical aspect to it. So beyond values and perception, there's also a very tangible impact on products and brands associated with Korea. So Julian, are we seeing also issues like counterfeits or cultural distortion related to this? Like, how is the global popularity of Korean products creating new problems in this particular area?
Yeah, so when products gain popularity, unfortunately, counterfeit products tend to follow suit. This has been a growing controversy as Korean products continue to sell at a rapid pace, and the range of K-foods being copied has been expanded. So popular food items such as ramen, soju, and even seaweed season are increasingly being replicated. In particular, the number of counterfeit products falsely claiming to be Korean has risen on overseas online marketplaces. So these products do pose a serious concerns in terms of safety. Now, they don't exactly may have the same quality assurance. It may not fit certain standard tests that the original product may have. But beyond just food, counterfeit cosmetics are also on the rise, negatively affecting K-beauty exports. Now, low-priced cosmetics are being falsely marketed and sold as K-beauty products. And it's especially frustrating because if a counterfeit product becomes someone's first introduction to Korean products, it can leave a negative perception of something they may have otherwise genuinely would have really loved.
So when these fake products spread, it doesn't just hurt businesses, it can also damage how Korean culture itself is perceived. So beyond products, misinformation and culture misunderstandings also seem to be spreading. So Jessica, can you share some recent examples where Korean culture was misrepresented overseas?
Yes. So not long ago in Saudi Arabia, a distorted and inaccurate version of hanbok, which is a Korean traditional costume, appeared in a public setting, sparking controversy online. Now in Italy, a local restaurant advertising itself as a Korean used the incorrect language, the Hangul. What made it worse was it also included an offensive language, raising serious concerns and controversy. Now in Romania, a Korean restaurant opening drew a strong backlash after displaying the rising sun flag, which is a symbol associated with Japanese militarism, and that is something that should never ever be associated with a Korean restaurant. The owner later did issue an apology, and it was begotten from an honest ignorance and corrected. Now on the other hand, there are some other interesting ones, which is a misunderstanding that happens in the reverse. So some foods are from other culture, like sogumbang, salt bread, which I know you're very excited about.
I love salt bread, yes.
I know. Unfortunately, it's not from Korea, it's from Japan. And maratang, which some of our viewers absolutely love, is from China. But because it's so popular through K-content, people misattribute them to Korea. So in both scenarios, while ignorance and mistake and confusion should be corrected, this is, I think, a very clear evidence of how fast and wide K-culture is spreading that we don't even have rooms to correct it, and people are just using it because it is becoming so popular.
Right.
Yeah.
So while there are some things I would like to claim.
I hear you.
So what you said really shows how easily Korean culture can be misrepresented as it spreads globally. So sometimes in ways that are simply inaccurate, and other times in ways that are deeply insensitive. So we want to know your thoughts on this too. So we asked on the Arirang News YouTube channel, what do you think is the most worrying side effect of the increase in popularity of Korean culture? So here's what the results showed. A clear majority pointed to misunderstandings of Korean culture, with 72% saying this was their biggest concern. Counterfeit goods followed at 10%, while crimes that exploit Hallyu as bait accounted for 8%. The remaining 10% cited other issues, showing that while Hallyu's global reach continues to expand, concerns about misrepresentation far outweigh other negative impacts. And that lines up closely with what we've been talking and hearing about today, that misinformation and misrepresentation may be the most damaging side effects of Hallyu's global success. And to get a broader, more international perspective, we'll be joined by a guest from Thailand who has firsthand experience with culture trends across the world. So that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us is Petra, a travel blogger from Thailand. Hi, Petra. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So have you seen any negative effects of Hallyu in real life or in your travels? If so, what case stood out to you the most?
I would say from me trying to share content on traveling to Korea earlier in my days as a blogger, I've seen people who would kind of disagree with just one aspect of the Hallyu, like I don't like K-pop or I'm too cool for K-dramas, and they completely just straight up refusing to visit Korea because they think if they come to Korea, that's all they're gonna get. So I remember having to share content by saying, I'm gonna try to convince you to visit Korea without mentioning the media. And I think that did a pretty good job of like shifting the focus from just one aspect of the culture more to the history and the day-to-day culture and the like multi-dimensional culture of what is actually Korea. So that would be the most negative thing I've seen so far. People are just like going yuck on the country because they think it's just K-pop or it's just K-drama or something like that.
Well, thank you so much for showing diverse aspect of Korea, because there's definitely more than just Hallyu. As Hallyu, thank you. But as Hallyu has become more widespread, do you think there are aspects of Korean culture that you feel have been misunderstood or misrepresented, as we talked about in our episode today?
Yeah, I was listening along with you guys, and it's really interesting how the Western world have moved on from demasculating Asian men to completely fetishizing and over romanticizing Korean men, especially, yeah, like they're just humans. Like that could result in disappointment because like I've actually heard of Western women coming to Korea just to try and date Korean men, and I'm like, you guys are gonna leave disappointed because they're just humans, and there are bad ones and there are good ones, just like in your culture.
Very interesting.
Like they're not, if you pretend to fall, they're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna do the K-drama move and like save you or anything like that. Because I don't know, the whole thing is just really funny to me, but also very understandable. I feel like the media oversimplifies everything. They put people in a certain box, especially when the content is viewed by people from the outside who have no idea what the nuances are on the inside. So, and also the beauty standards on the women's side. I've heard people say that Korean women care way too much about how they look and not about anything else. And I'm like, that's not true. There's education, there's career, and like if you actually come walk the streets of Korea, like you're gonna see that not everyone tries to dress up fancy all the time because that's not the most important thing. But everyone in K-drama looks good, so that must be it, right?
Yeah, well, thank you for your insightful answer. So just to go off of that, on the flip side, what positive impacts have Hallyu had, such as challenging or breaking stereotypes about Koreans?
Yeah, this is a really difficult question. I had to think on this a lot because there are tiny little trends within the Hallyu wave itself, if you know what I mean. So like this answer is gonna differ depending on where I live and stuff. But speaking as someone who grew up in Thailand, the Hallyu wave didn't really hit Thailand until around 2004, 2005, with like the K-pop bands like Tomang Shingi, who celebrate their 22nd anniversary today, by the way. And like Super Junior, Wonder Girls, stuff like that. So anything that came before that was considered very niche. And like from that point on, 2004, I would say the biggest change that I've seen is this shift from rather violent male leads to a more gentle one. And I think that's kind of taken hold in real life Korean men as well. Like I remember being on a snorkeling tour in southern Thailand with my friend, and I saw like she had cut her foot on a sharp rock under the water. And I remember coming out of the water because I saw this like Korean couple that was on the tour with us just putting Band-Aid on her foot for her because like the guy had seen her bleeding, and then he came over because he had the Band-Aid and he was like doing everything for her. And that's something that's seen in K-dramas today, but not the K-dramas of 2002. You know what I mean? So I think personally that is the only, like, that is not the only one, but the biggest positive shift that I've seen in the Hallyu wave in Thailand.
I think
from
you
that
did.
point.
Right, I think you did a great job of sharing the shift that's happening, has happened, and is continuing to happen. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today.
You're welcome.
So we just heard from someone who has seen the global spread of Hallyu firsthand through her travels, sharing both the positive impact of its growing popularity and the challenges that come with it. So as Hallyu reaches more people around the world, its influence is no longer limited to just culture and entertainment. It's also creating real-world consequences. So with that in mind, when Hallyu is exploited for criminal activities, so how should governments and authorities respond to this, Jessica?
Yeah, I think this is a very serious question, and experts have stressed that swift and coordinated action is quite essential. And as the global reach of Hallyu becomes more influential and attractive, it is now being abused as a tool for exploitation, since there is a very high emotional and attractive component to which could make some people fall quickly and easily. And Julian has given us the episode of how sexual exploitation things do happen in Brazil. Now, according to the Korean Consulate General, these schemes are increasingly using K-culture as bait to gain trust and manipulate victims. Now, in response, the Korean Consulate General in Brazil will work closely with local prosecutors to investigate and ensure that those responsible do face appropriate legal consequences.
So you did a great job of covering what authorities can do. So Julian, what about What should ordinary people do in addressing this issue?
Yeah, so I think it's really important just to keep fostering these type of discussions, and also us Koreans should also take greater interest in these issues. So in the cases involving Korean restaurants in Italy, like Romania, like Jessica has mentioned, is local Korean communities have paid attention, shared the issue on social media, and they even stepped forward to demand corrections. Now, ultimately, this type of collective awareness and effort is essential, but it's also important that we ourselves take the initiative to learn more and understand our culture much more accurately so that accurate information is shared from the start. Now, fortunately, we are already seeing this on social media. We're already seeing people engaging in this conversation.
Yes,
so
very much
it's really, it's really exciting to see, and I'm really happy to see that so far. But we need to be vigilant and continue this more.
Right, I agree. And like how you pointed out, it shows that this isn't just an issue for governments or institutions. It also shows the power of everyday people stepping in. So in cases like the restaurants in Italy and Romania, it was local Koreans who paid attention and spoke up, which led to real change. So with that in mind, and to close off our discussion for the day, so let me ask you this, Cheska, what message would you like to share with Hallyu fans across the world?
First of all, I think as a Korean who has lived abroad for many, many years, I feel genuinely grateful to be living in the moment in time. And whenever I see visitors and people who are coming and from different cultures walking through everyday streets in Korea, I am actually reminded of the love and the curiosity and the open-mindedness they bring in to learn about us. And I'm so moved. But more than anything, we hope that everyone exploring Korean culture does so safely, as we talked about. Please take a moment to double check, ask questions, seek reliable sources when something feels uncertain. Protecting yourself is part of enjoying the journey of experiencing. And finally, I hope people can love Korea and its culture with patience and understanding, much like you would do with your own culture. Because we're not perfect, and we never will be. But if we approach cultural differences not as a matter of right or wrong, but something as space for expanded empathy, then I think Hallyu can truly become a much beautiful and long-lasting experience. And I would highly hope that for everyone.
And I think you put that beautifully. Give it a message as well.
Yeah, so I'm also very appreciative of the love that we are getting too. It's really nice to see that, especially as an Asian American growing up, not really appreciating and learning more about my culture. It's really nice to see this. But at the end of the day, I think that we are human, and our culture is something that's beautiful that we do want to share with the world. But if people are unfortunately being marketed as disposable or as something that should be taken advantage of, it's important to think twice, both about the broader ramifications and your own safety before engaging in such. Now, also, when it comes to shopping for physical products, it's important to be hyper-vigilant about whether a product is genuine or counterfeit. Now, there also has to be clear, greater, better established guidelines to help consumers identify the differences, and I feel that the companies should take responsibility for that. But similarly, when accessing certain services, for example, a dating service like we have mentioned, it's crucial to remain cautious, especially when Korean people are being marketed as products rather than just people who genuinely want to make a connection. So I think there's just a lot to think about, and I think it's important to have these conversations so we can have better ideas what we can suggest to.
That's what News Generation does, isn't it?
Right, exactly. So Hallyu's global success is something to celebrate, but as we've discussed today, popularity also comes with the responsibility to understand, represent, and protect Korean culture accurately as it continues to reach new audiences. And this goes for every country, but sustaining global love for Korea's culture means going beyond trends, taking the time to learn, question, and respect where that comes from. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Cheska.
Thank you.
And also Julian.
Thank you for having me.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
Korea, a globally recognized sports powerhouse. Behind the dazzling achievements, there's always an invisible force at work. With sophisticated materials, cutting-edge equipment, and innovative technological solutions, SMEs in the K-sports industry play a vital role in bolstering Korea's status as a sports powerhouse. By integrating AI technology, they unlock athletes' potential and enhance performance, elevating the sports environment to the next level and opening new markets in the sports industry. Their innovative technology and bold challenges drive the growth of Korea's sports industry, creating a better world through sports. The innovation of these SMEs never stops. A systematic partnership support program is implemented to discover promising sports SMEs, provide technical validation and R&D support to enhance competitiveness, and strengthen the foundation for overseas expansion. At Tokyo Sportech 2025, the technological prowess of Korean companies was recognized. The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, and the Korea Sports Promotion Foundation supported K-sports companies with product promotion and business consultations with global buyers, demonstrating product quality and market potential, and confirming the possibility of expanding into the global market.
저희는 ICT 강국으로서 그 바이어나 사용자들한테 신기술을 접목한 생활 스포츠 기회를 실질적으로 확대할 수 있는 그 기회를 제공하는 데 많은 도움이 될 수 있으리라고 확신을 합니다.
이제 스포츠도 K죠. K 스포츠는 이겁니다.
The joy for all, created by the power of K-sports. Experience the future of the new sports industry through the innovation and technology of the Korean sports industry.